first. I introduce you this morning, my first time to do this, your lead pastor, Pastor Aaron Roberts.
That was quite expected. I knew the first part. This part is not part of the plan. This is us doing what we do around here, and we honor Holy Spirit. We are going to continue our series, Up is Down, Down is Up. What we're doing in this series, the reason I named it that is sometimes at life we think it looks like this. And for a long time we can go around saying this is how it really looks. And God goes, it doesn't look like that. Look at it again. And so what we sometimes think is up is actually down, and it's time for God to readjust our perspective on some things. And for us, I'm standing up here as part of Charity, and I as the leadership team of this church, as he rocked our world in perspective, and now my job is to rock your world in perspective. And so this morning we're going to continue. We're going to talk about giving. Giving is something here at Grace Place we strongly believe in. But we don't believe in the practice of constantly badgering you about your money. If you've been here for a while, you know that. We don't stop service and take an offering. This is very different for us. I don't think we've ever stopped service and had a traditional offering. We don't do it. Now, recently you may have noticed that we mention it, and we're bringing it to your attention, the options to give and how to give, because we're trying to do a better job of conveying values to you and let you know this is what we value, this is what we believe is best for you and how to do it. And we want you to know that we believe in the first fruits principle and believing God and believing in giving to God. So as we said, this message was planned weeks ago. I prayed over it, felt it, went to pastor, and he felt it, prayed over it, and God has kind of moved us the last couple weeks in a different direction and kind of shaped how this is going. I did not come up with this message as hey, we're going to have a building fund fundraiser today. This is not a televangelist share-a-thon. This is me communicating a life principle that I want in the early stages of my ministry to tell you exactly how I value things and what I find important in life principles to live your life on. Because what can be lost today in churches is that they're all about your money. You hear that phrase over and over again, churches just want your money. But if you come to Grace Place, you'll hear, Grace Place doesn't care about your money. They don't place any value in money. Well, the truth is it's somewhere in the middle of that. We're not all about your money, but that doesn't mean that we don't believe that God still wants you to give your best and your first fruits. As time has gone on, our determination not to talk about money has led us not to talk about it at all. I did some research, and you don't know this, and I'm as responsible as you because for the last year, we've as a team shaped the messages. And the last 100 sermons that we've preached, that's like the conservative effort, 100 messages, nearly 2 years of messages, we have preached on giving exclusively 5 times in 100 messages. That is 5% of what we've preached to you has been about giving. The result has been a community that has missed out on the opportunities and the benefits that come along with putting our first fruits first. We've not wanted to offend or chase people away, but it's led to people being stuck in the lives they're in and not receiving all that God has for them. So we're going to talk about money, and I can already tell some of you are anxious. Some may be nervous. Some people get really, really oft. They get really angry when you talk about money. Everything in the world wants your money, no big deal. The church talks about it, blood pressure goes up. I get it, I understand it. But why? Why do we feel that way? What makes us react that way? A lot of times we don't like talking about money because we've all experienced really bad examples of money in our life. We've seen the devastation that money can cause. We've never seen it have a redeeming, good, healthy quality in our life. We've watched it tear apart relationships, rip down marriages, break apart families from sons and daughters. We've seen it, people lose their homes to the lack of money. We've seen people lose their lives because of money. We don't give money any good redeeming value because we've never seen it be good and redeeming. We've seen preachers on TV who have guilted us and conned us out of our money. We've been in churches that have beat us over the head and asked us for our money. And what it's done is we stopped trusting because we've never seen it done right. We've had such bad experiences. Some people don't believe in giving money because they actually think the church doesn't need it. I wish that was the case. I told Charity when I wrote this line this week that I want the manna from heaven. I want my tree outside, and I just go pick the bush. And like every week, the garbage bill here would get paid, and the heat bill would get paid, and the mortgage would get paid, and all the things we need to make this place, the heat that we're feeling right now. But unfortunately, I don't have a secret benefactor. Some people say, well, I don't like talking about money, and I don't like giving money, because, all it does is it just goes to feed those preachers' lifestyles. I've seen their Facebook. I know what they do. Now, this one's different. I know none of you in this room think this. People have. People probably will in the future. But since it involves me and it's early on, we're going to be open and honest with you. Pastor Danny has not taken a salary from this church in 5 years. So what's that mean? We've paid his rent, we've paid his gas, and we paid a couple of his health bills. But if he wants food, he's kind of on his own. If he wants to go buy clothes, he's had to earn that money somewhere else. He gets his stuff paid for, but he's given it up. I didn't ask, I didn't make. That was his way of continuing the ministry. Charity works, I think I figured out, like 70 hours a week and makes $0. I work 50 to 60 hours a week because I like free time. She doesn't. She loves to work. And so you could say that combined, we make the equivalent of our house payment. So some of you know what a house payment is. That's about what we make. We make all our money and other means to live on. Now, I don't tell you this like, oh, feel sorry for me. I don't make any money. I'm good. I'm happier now at the rate I'm at than I've ever been in my life because what we have is enough for me to do my purpose and makes me happier than anything else. This ain't complaints. This is just facts. I'm being honest with you. If I want to play golf, I work all winter and fall and the holidays to earn money to golf. We live a very budgeted, rigid financial life. I lived out some principles when I was younger that I must speak to you today, and so did Charity. So we don't have car payments, and my student loan is paid off. I still don't know how that's paid off, but God's great, and I was able to do that long ago. So we live a budgeted life. We live very disciplined. I eat lots of top ramen, and it allows us to do the things we want to do in a life. So if you think it enriches our life, it makes us fancy rich, no, that's just not the case. Like I said, I know none of you feel that way. I just needed to clear the air. So other people would say, well, I like to talk about money because Jesus never talked about money. Jesus didn't care about money. He never worried about it, never had a problem with it. And I was thinking about this thought this week, and I realized, Judas. What was Judas's job? If I remember right, Judas carried the money, right? Like, he carried a sack full of money. So when the 12 disciples traveled, hey, Judas, we got to eat today. All right, I got the money to pay for that. Where'd the money come from? People gave to Jesus. Jesus would give to those who were in need because he had a bag man. He literally had a guy who carried around a sack of money. They had so much money that Judas took the money, and the other guys didn't know it. So he wasn't walking around with like 5 shekels of silver and like, hey, there's only 4. Jesus wasn't in the business of making money, but he valued money so he could do ministry with it. In fact, he talked about money, and we're going to look at that here in a minute. Some people may say, well, giving's good. I get it. I love it. I just believe in more important things. I'm sure it's talked about in the Bible, but there's other things. So I have this great little slide I want to show you real quick. The word believe. That's an important word, right? Believe, that's where our faith comes in. You would think we're going to talk about believe a lot in the Bible, right? 271 times in the Bible that believe is talked about. You can hit the next one, Dennis. I got a little ahead of myself, so one more. And then the word pray. This is a good word, right? My life should be evolved around prayer. Jesus even taught us how to pray. This one's only 371 times it's mentioned in the Bible, and we're told to pray. What about love? God is love. Love is the whole point of the Bible. 714 times in the Bible, right? This is a pretty big number. That's a big number. What about giving? 2,161 times giving's talked about in the Bible, but it's okay. I mean, it's almost triple the closest one. Why? Why does God talk about it so much? Because he did it first. For God so loved the world that he gave his only son. If I'm God, I gave my everything to get you, and now I only ask that you give some. So, God led us first. And secondly, the reason why giving has to be talked about so much is because giving doesn't make sense to us because we think when we give, someone else benefits and we take a loss. But in the Bible, when you read it, the person who gives to God is actually the one who benefits from it. So how do you benefit from giving? So let's look at what Jesus said. Not my words, Jesus' words. Matthew 6, chapter 6, verses 19 through 21. It's going to be our theme verse. It's at the bottom of your bulletin this morning. So I'm reading from the ESV version. It says, "Do not lay up for yourselves treasures on earth, where moth and rust destroy and where thieves break in and steal. But lay up for yourself treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor rust destroys, where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will also be." We've probably all heard this verse many, many times. And we've heard the scripture, "But lay up treasures for yourself in heaven. Make yourself the fluffiest cloud, the best diaper." So when it's fluffy clouds and babies in heaven, because that's what some people vision heaven is, we're all running around and, puffy clouds and huggy diapers. I think I heard one pastor say, and I thought it was awesome. But it says, lay up treasures for yourself in heaven. Do not waste your money here. You can actually send it ahead. Let's get real. He's talking about actual treasures, not some spiritual qualities. This time he's talking about, it's actually, this phrase is used 5 times in the Bible. He wants us to know this one. This is not, don't spend your money here, spend it on getting into heaven. This isn't buying eternity. This assumes you're going there and says when you get there, you can store up treasures for yourselves. You can make what we're going to call today eternal investments. Jesus said, do it, but how do we do it? How do we store up treasures? Paul tells us in 1 Timothy chapter 6, verses 17 through 19. So you can write it down. It's 1 Timothy chapter 6, 17 through 19. Paul's given instructions to the early church on how to live out their lives. And he starts and says, as for the rich, verse 17 starts, as for the rich. Okay, so everyone was like, what disqualifies me? I'm not rich. So, rich. How many people live in America? You are now richer than 95% of the world just by the fact you live in America. If you have money in your pocket, even if it's a nickel or a penny, you're now richer than like 97% of the world because you have money in your pocket. If you have a checking account, a bank account, any denomination of money, you're richer than 98% of the world. You are the 1% of the world. By the fear, we're all running around, and I know everyone's got their own financial situation, but we all have cell phones. We all have televisions for the most part. We all have refrigerators. These are things the rest of the world doesn't have, so we can lose sight. So, now that we know that as for the rich, us, in this present age, charge them not to be haughty. Haughty is a really big word, so I broke it down. I went to the dictionary. Do not be haughty. It says, which is disdainfully proud, snobbish, or scornfully arrogant. So, do not be disdainfully proud, snobbish, scornfully arrogant, nor tell them not to set their hopes on uncertainty of riches, but on God, who richly provides us everything we need to enjoy. They is us. We are to do good, to be rich in good works, to be generous and ready to share. Thus, storing up treasures for themselves as a good foundation for the future. Another version will say, so thus storing up treasures in heaven, so that they may take hold of which is truly life. Tell those who are rich, don't worry about what the world has. God's given you everything, and so be ready to do good works, to be generous and ready to share, so that they may take hold of the life which is truly life. There's a real life that some of us might not be living, and we've thought it was something else, and we've thought it didn't matter, and God's saying, here's how to have that full life. And I want you to see when you give to God, you give purpose to your money. You're giving to God's fund. You've all heard of mutual funds and investment funds and Charles Schwab's and all those. God has investment funds that you can invest your money. We're going to call them this morning the 5 eternal investment funds, because we're going to invest in eternity in these funds. He has 5 eternal funds. They are proven, they're risk-free, and they produce returns for all of eternity. Now, I've told you last week that our goal here is to teach you that your life has purpose. Your life has many purposes. And God has assigned specific purposes to all of us. And the first one is, God says our purpose is to love him. We are to love him. It's the great command. Love me with all your soul, all your spirit, all your mind, everything you are. Love me. So, as you read your Bible, you learn the way I show God I love him is I worship him in everything I do. I show God my heart is with him. So how do I do a check to know where my heart is? Well, when we read the verse earlier in Matthew, Jesus gives us the clue on how to know where our heart is so we know we're worshiping the right thing. In verse 21 of Matthew 6, it says, "For where your treasure is, there your heart will also be." So your treasure is where your heart is. That's what you know. So everyone goes, well, my heart's with God. I know my heart's with God. Don't think of it that way. Stop and make the mental list in your head right now. Where do you spend all your money? Just forget if you have a lot or you have a little. Just be honest with yourself. Where do you spend your money? Put them all on that list. That's where your heart is. That's where your heart is. My treasure tells me where the heart is. My heart and my treasure can't be separate because Jesus said it's not. But I want you to see, you may be asking, well, I don't want my heart to be in that. I want my heart to be with God. How do I do that? Well, that's what we're going to talk about this morning. We're going to talk about the first fund. To put your treasure where your heart is, you give your tithe, your tenth, your first portion to what we're going to call this morning God's treasury fund. I invest in eternity by using my money to worship God. I'm going to put my treasure in his fund, and you put my heart in a place to worship him. We love God, and we put our treasure in his fund. Our heart is with him. By worshiping and putting our treasure with him, we are putting our heart with him. Proverbs 3 and 9. Each point has a couple scriptures. I'll cover a few of them. I didn't cover all of them this morning because I want you to go home and kind of research some of this and pull some of it out for yourself. But Proverbs 3 and 9 says, honor the Lord with your wealth and with the first fruits of all your produce. Tithe your 10%. Why do we say 10%? Because that's the number that started at the beginning, it was in the middle, and it was at the end. You give 10, you put it in his system. When you give 10, he's able to bless the 90%. Pastor preached this message in May. It's been 6 months since we preached on tithing, and that was Pastor's message. You put in 10, he blesses the rest. You don't put in the first, the rest is on you. Now, sometimes in our mind, we will look at that and say, I can't afford 10%, Aaron. Like, I don't make my bills right now. If I give up 10%, I'm going without, like, food, shelter, clothes, warmth. And I get, sorry, my voice was a little raspy. I might have been yelling last night and cheering on something, but luckily for all of us, I didn't have to cheer very much, so my voice is in good shape. And I know this feeling. Like I can't give the full 10, so I don't want to make God mad and be cheap, so I'll give him nothing. Think of it this way. When I was younger, like really young, like many years ago in elementary school, they would have this holiday gift shop that they would bring all these giftings in and little trinkets and things, and mom and dad would give you $5 and you could go buy like 7 or 8 gifts. And they were terrible. They were cheesy. But you know what? When I gave them to my mom and dad, you know what they did? Oh, that's so amazing. That's the greatest thing ever. Because they knew I didn't have much and I gave my heart. Or if I made something, that's when I really would have my parents' heart. If I made something and they knew I put value in it and gave it my love, they didn't look at it and go, that's like a 3-cent piece of paper. They wait, this is great, and they've kept it. I think my mom still got a few things. I know with us, charity, and we've kept some things from Thomas and Savannah that cost no value, but was all their heart. And it's the same with God. He wants your heart, not an amount. Start somewhere. He wants the best you can do. So start with some sort of percentage. I challenge people to be a percentage giver because it's a commitment to say, I'm not going to give what's left. I'm not going to give a tip. I'm not going to give because it was a good message and Aaron had some good points. I'm going to give because I'm going to set aside 1%, 2%, 3%, 4%. Maybe it's 10. Maybe it's 15. I'm inspired by a lot of guys I hear who have the faith to want to be 90% tithers. I'd love to live where I can give 90% away and live on 10 because I believe God gives us more so we can give more and be more of a blessing because he can always take care of what we need. So Charity and I do our bills. This is how it works. I don't do our bills. You'll hear why later. But when she sits down, she writes a check and she writes our tithe first thing. Sets it aside and then she pays our bills. Everything is based off, this has already been paid. Do I have money for everything else? And we always have money at the end. We always pay bills. This month, she looked at me. We're going to have to dip into savings. We're going to have to go into our funds. And she comes back at the end and goes, we had $20 extra. We didn't have to do anything. God makes it work. Anybody know where Microsoft stock closed on Friday? How would you know? You got money in it? Mike knows because he's got money in it. Anybody? This is part of my point. Mike knows because he's got stock in it. He's got money in it. He has value in it. iTunes or Apple, anybody know? Tesla, Twitter. Don't look at Twitter. It's bad. I don't have money in it. I just watch it. Facebook. No one knows because why? You don't have any money in it. You don't care because there's nothing invested in it. So put your money on the things you care about and you'll become more invested than you've ever been before. So where's your heart? Is it car, house, electronics? Is it in coffee, fast food, restaurants, nails, massages, hair appointments? Not mine. Is it in your habits? Find ways to take less of the stuff that doesn't matter and put more into the stuff that does matter. Give, and it's an act of worship. Now there's another fund to give. Fund number 2. It's tied to your purpose that you're not supposed to go through life alone. That you are made to learn to love other people. You're made to be part of God's family. You're made to have connections with others, connections that lift you up and lift them up. We call this God's mutual fund. I invest in eternity by using my money to encourage fellowship. When you give, you invest in mutual relationships being by people coming together in one common purpose. When you give, you allow us to meet together on mornings like this. You encourage others to help elevate each other. You're not meant to go through life alone, and God has a fellowship plan. I'll read through 3 scriptures really quick. Romans 12 and 10. Love one another with mutual affection. Romans 12:13. Share what you have with God's people who are in need. Show hospitality. Hebrews 10:24. Think of ways to encourage one another with outbursts of love and good deeds. Come together and build each other up. This all takes place when you give. It produces opportunities for fellowship. Whether it's in a Sunday service like this, whether it's on a small group during the week, one of our outreach programs in the community, your giving serves to give God's people the opportunity to come together with each other and to come together with those who don't know Jesus yet. It gives the church the chance to be the church. This all making some sense this morning? Number 3, the fund. God's growth fund. I invest in eternity by using my money to grow my character. Now, I bet a lot of people didn't think of this one. I invest to grow my character. I thought I had character, that's why I gave. Yes, but think about this. Whenever you pray for patience, what do people say? I've been praying for patience, and God is giving me more things to be patient about. I used to pray for faith a lot. And then I realized when I do that, God gives me more things to have faith about, and that grows my faith that way. When you give, you will grow your character because it stretches your faith. It stretches your heart and makes your mind be more on Him. You learn to trust Him. You learn to rely on Him. And when you start to do that, you start to see his faithfulness. You start to see his goodness. It changes your mindset from my desires, my life, what do I want, what do I need to, what does God want? What's his mindset I should have? What are the needs he has for me? It opens us up to his possibilities. Proverbs has some great lines about how to take money and use it to grow your character. Proverbs 10:16 says, the earnings of the godly enhance their lives. It grows their life. But evil people squander their money on sin. Proverbs 23:23 says, invest in truth, wisdom, discipline, and good sense, and don't part with them. One we covered this summer was Proverbs 16:16. It's better, much better to have wisdom and knowledge than gold and silver. Invest in things that grow your character. When you give to the growth fund, it enriches our lives and brings discipline, it brings truth, and it brings wisdom. When we give, it gives value to the things we receive benefits from. Hopefully what you've offered and experienced here in Grace Place and amongst God's peoples has helped grow your character, and our aim is that it will continue to be a benefit and a resource and uplift you and help grow you and mature you more and more as we go into the future. We as human beings spend a lot of money on comfort, but God wants us to invest our money in character. The second part of the growth fund also includes that when you give, there is a supernatural process where God begins to grow what you have and what you produce that naturally couldn't happen. Many people don't give because they are waiting to have enough to give. And I'm being blunt, you will never, if that's you, you're never going to have enough to give if you're waiting for enough to give. It sounds crazy, but until you give, you'll never have enough to give. Because the truth is, no matter what level of income you have something you can give to God. He's not concerned with the size. He's concerned with the size of your heart, not the size of the check. I'm going to give you an example. I don't tell you this because I've heard of good stories. I have good stories. I've seen it work out in my life. Many years ago, I was working in the grocery business, doing pretty well for myself. I'm single. I don't have any bills. I don't have any kids, so I get all the money to myself. I'm making like $3,000 a month after taxes. I know it's not rich, but for me, I'm comfortable. I had $1,500 in bills. So I have $1,500 a month. I've already paid for my food. I paid my rent. I just get to go play, hang out with friends, buy video games, go golfing, do things. You know what? Every month, I was broke. I don't know where I spent my money. It wasn't there anymore. I am making that much money and calling my folks embarrassed to say, I need to borrow some money to cover a check. I need to borrow some money to clear me out. I'll pay you back. I gave when I was 12 years old, my first paycheck when I picked berries. At 16, when I started working, I tithed. And I tithed for many years. Mid-20s, I just randomly stopped. There was no real reason. I just stopped. And all of a sudden, my money went away. I don't know where it went to this day. That's why she does the bills. And so I kind of realized, like, I had some financial, just things out of whack. So I started tithing again. And, like, getting first things first, getting my life back in order. It wasn't this, holy revelational moment. I just knew what I should be doing, and I went back and I did it. And I started to have money again. And I don't know why I didn't change my lifestyle. I still was very undisciplined. But I ended up having more money every month. I ended up not having to call mom and dad and borrow money. I was unemployed from 2010 to 2011 for 18 months. My bills were about $1,700. My income on unemployment was $1,800. I didn't have any money to go anywhere. I tithed on every income, on every check from unemployment. I started with one number at 18 months saying, I hope this couple $1,000 lasts. And I ended with more money than I started with. Well, how's that work? I don't know. I didn't get sick. My car didn't break. I didn't have any crises. I didn't have any problems go wrong. And somehow God was able to use what was going on in my life that I didn't get it destroyed, but I kept getting added to. And it's nothing I did, because I'm bad with money. But in God's, when I gave and tithed to it, it put it in his growth fund and did things supernaturally that it couldn't do naturally. So I'm not preaching theoreticals here. I'm preaching practical, lived it out, seen it done, and continue to see it done every day. Our fourth fund It's God's service fund. I invest in eternity by using my money to serve others. It's another purpose we have, is to serve other people. Now, this may be the most opposite thought than society at this very moment. No one cares about anyone else. They only care about themselves. I'm in it to get it for me. The world says, what's mine is mine. In fact, what's yours is partly mine. That's how everyone lives. If you have more than me, I'm taking it away because you're cheating the system. It's mine. But that's not how God says. God says he gives so we can use to serve other people. Our life should be about other people. We're created to be like Christ and serve people. This can be seen as the ministry, the hands and feet, the walking out of Jesus. We serve people. We give hope to hopeless people. We give food to those that are hungry. We give salvation to those going to hell. We give life to those that are dying. Excuse me. Proverbs 11:24 says, one gives freely, yet grows all the richer. One gives freely, yet grows all the richer. Another withholds what he should give and only suffers wants. The one who gives grows richer. The one who holds back suffers want. There is a reward when we use our money to serve others. It satisfies your soul like nothing else will. You ever given money to a homeless person on the street? What happens inside? You go, woohoo, I feel good. Here. We don't go like, ah. You know, you give a little bit to the homeless person. You give a little bit to a cause. You give a little bit to somebody who's in need. And inside, you go, woohoo. I feel good. Why? Because in your DNA, God has wired you to serve people, to help, to give to those, to be a giver. It's in your DNA to give, and your body responds to it and is energized by it. The final fund is a purpose we all have as followers of Jesus. We are commanded to tell others about Jesus, and we do this when we invest in God's global fund. I invest in eternity by using my money to bring others to Jesus. Luke 16:9 says, and I tell you, make friends for yourself by means of unrighteous wealth, so that when it fails, they may receive you in eternal dwellings. So let's read it again. I tell you, make friends for yourself by using wealth. You can read that and it'll sound like, use your money to buy friends. It kind of sounds like that. But that's not really what it says. Start at the end. That they may receive you in eternal dwellings. Your friends will receive you in heaven. So you're going to go, and they're going to be there, and they're going to receive you. How are they going to get there? Because you took what you were given, and you gave so they may know Jesus. You make friends by giving, you make followers of Jesus to meet, and they will meet you in heaven because of the money you gave to reach them. Your money has the power to reach people, spread the gospel, and lead them to heaven. And it will be because you gave and invested in the go tell the whole world that they'll know Jesus. Think of it this way. How many lives have been changed by being part of Grace Place? Specifically, you were going to hell if it wasn't for Pastor Danny and having meeting him. There's like 15, 20 people in this room right now. If they wouldn't have bumped into Danny, they were going to hell. Here's how this works. You will meet him in heaven, but you're not going to meet just him. 10, 20, he's been doing this for 40 years and only 9 years here. So 40 years ago, people gave, and it was part of God's global fund, so he could continue to be the hands and the feet and continue his ministry. So 35, 40 years later, you could bump into Danny and get the gospel and go to heaven because they gave 40 years ago. Here's an example that I can use just for today. There's a couple here that I grew up knowing my whole life. They were watched me when I was younger, and I was 7, and I went to church, and they were on the other side of the sanctuary, and they were giving, and I was hearing the gospel. When I was 12, they were on the other side of the church giving, and I was hearing the gospel. At 18, they were on one side of the church giving, and I was receiving the gospel. They didn't know it was infecting me. They didn't know anything about me spiritually. They were doing what God called them to do, not knowing 20 years later they were going to face a crisis. And I was here doing what I'm doing today because they gave to a ministry that fed me Jesus so that 20 years later I could be in a place to offer them help. So when we give to God's Global Fund, it's not about us. It's giving so someone else can reach Jesus. Some of you were here when we bought these chairs. And now you're sitting in them. Most of us were. I wasn't here when we bought these chairs. I put some of them together, but I didn't buy them. But now I get to sit on them. I get to be comfortable when I hear the gospel. That's what God's Global Funds looks like. That's why we give. We started by telling you some true, hard facts of this place, not to scare you, not to bargain with you or plead with you. We were being open and honest because God told us to be. If we could have $10 in the bank or $100,000 in the bank, I'm still preaching this message today because it's a value that I believe in so much that I'm going to give everything I got so you understand it. We have to understand that it's okay to recognize that when we give, we store up treasures in heaven for ourselves later. When you go on vacation, you don't spend all your money in Europe because you're going home, right? Home's the destination. Heaven's the destination. So quit wasting all your money in Montana when you're going back to Washington or Italy. That's kind of how it works. It's about doing the work that Jesus called us all to do, and your money has purpose when you give. Give money a purpose. Finally, the last slide for the day and the last note is you must make up in your mind to hold on to this truth. I'll forever enjoy what I invest in eternity. Everything you give, you're not losing, you're sending it on ahead. You're the beneficiary. You're the one who's going to reap all the rewards. You're the one that God's going to give back to. And as a church, we are focused on helping you discover and live out your purpose. And we will always value that over your comfort. That's why the messages like today are so hard. Because I know it makes you uncomfortable. I didn't sleep because it makes me uncomfortable, and I believe in it. But I understand the importance of your purpose more than your comfort. And we're going to value your purpose more than your comfort at every opportunity. And we're going to challenge you because we see what you can be. And over the years, we may not have done that. That's on us. But from here on out, we want you to see that when you give, it enriches you and you're the benefit and it grows the world. You benefit. Make the determination this morning that I'm going to take the next step towards God. Last week we talked about God's telling everybody to quit standing and take a step. And we're going to be aimed at everyone taking their next step with God. And this morning, take your next step with God and say, this morning I'm going to commit to give. I'm specifically going to give to these 5 investment funds. As Danny said, up, down, sideways, ministry of Grace Place will always continue in some form or fashion. We were going to take an offering because I didn't want to, because I know God's going to make it all work out. But He's the boss, and He's going to tell me how God's going to work it all out. But I know God's going to work it all. I'm not scared. I'm so excited that when I face moments like this, because I get to see God move. I've seen Him move my whole life. So I'm asking this morning for you to go on that journey in your life. Take that step. I'm trying to help you. You're not helping me. I'm helping you. This is for you. This isn't for me. So I'm going to turn it over to Pastor Danny, and he's going to close.
Don't go far.